Our story takes us to the heart of East Africa, to Kenya in the mid-20th century. It was a time when colonial rule gripped the land and the people. The Kikuyu, Embu, Meru, and other communities lived under the heavy hand of British control. Their lands had been seized, their rights stripped away, and their voices silenced. But from this oppression, a movement would rise. This is the story of the Mau Uprising. The roots of the Mau Mau Uprising began in the early 20th century, when fertile lands in Kenya's central highlands were taken by British settlers. The Kikuyu people, who had farmed these lands for generations, were pushed into overcrowded reserves. Poverty spread, resentment brewed, and a desire for freedom ignited. By the 1940s, resistance was growing, and whispers of rebellion filled the air. In 1944, a group called the Kenya African Union, KAU, was formed. Led by men like Jomo Kenyatta, the KAU sought political change through peaceful means. But for many, change was not coming fast enough. By the early 1950s, a secretive, militant movement emerged, the Mau. The Mau Mau were bound by oaths, pledging loyalty to the cause of freedom and resistance to colonial rule. The oaths were sacred and binding, creating a deep sense of unity and purpose among its members. Their goal was clear: to reclaim their land and restore their dignity. But this would not come without sacrifice. The Mau Mau launched attacks on settlers, government officials, and collaborators. Farms were burned, supply lines were disrupted, and fear spread through colonial ranks. In response, the British declared a state of emergency in 1952. Thousands of troops were sent to Kenya, and a brutal campaign to crush the Mau Mau began. The British established detention camps where suspected Mau Mau members were imprisoned, interrogated, and often tortured. Villages were surrounded by barbed wire, and the population was subjected to harsh curfews and collective punishment. Despite these measures, the Mau Mau fought on, retreating into the forests and waging a guerrilla war. One of the most famous leaders of the Mau Mau was Dedan Kimathi, a charismatic and fearless strategist. Kimathi became a symbol of resistance. He rallied fighters in the forests, planned daring attacks, and kept the dream of freedom alive. But the British were relentless, and in 1956, Kimathi was captured. His execution marked a turning point in the uprising. By the late 1950s, the Mau Mau uprising was largely suppressed. The cost had been immense. Tens of thousands of Kenyans had been killed, many more displaced, and entire communities devastated. But the Mau Mau had achieved something profound. They had shattered the illusion of colonial invincibility and laid the groundwork for Kenya's independence. In 1963, Kenya gained independence, and Jomo Kenyatta became the nation's first president. Though the Mau Mau were initially sidelined in post-independence Kenya, their contribution to the freedom struggle could not be erased. In later years, their sacrifices were recognized, and their story became a symbol of resilience and the fight for justice. Today, the Mau Mau Uprising stands as a reminder of the power of unity, courage, and the unyielding desire for freedom. It is a testament to the human spirit's ability to rise against oppression and fight for what is right. The scars of the struggle remain, but so does the legacy of a people who dared to dream of a better future. The Mau Mau did not fight for themselves alone. They fought for generations to come, for the right to live with dignity and self-determination. Their story is not just Kenya's story. It is a universal story of hope, struggle, and triumph.